Hi, I'm Jen from JenThereDoneThat, and we have new travel restrictions for January 2022 here in Puerto Rico. So starting December 30th, all restaurants, bars, theaters, stadiums, coliseum, convention centers, casinos, and any establishment that serves prepared food or drinks will limit capacity to 50% indoors for events and operations and 75% capacity for outdoor events and operations. That's already started. As soon as that was announced, we started seeing restaurants start limiting their capacity both for indoor and outdoor dining. So just plan ahead if you are wanting to dine in. As of December 27th, we started the new rules of all passengers, regardless of vaccination status, must present a negative COVID test upon arrival or face a $300 fine. You do have 48 hours to upload your test results. Tests are in scarce quantities here on the island, so if you're planning to arrive and then take the test, there are long lines and there's a serious test shortage. So if you are able to get tested before your flight departs, do that, and then once you get your test results, even if it's a day or two after you arrive, you can still upload those to the travel declaration form and avoid that $300 fine. And they are mailing out fines. Several people have told me they've received a fine in the mail, and so they are actually following up on those fines now. If you are a vaccinated passenger, then when you fill out your travel declaration form, you just upload your vaccination card, and then once they have your negative COVID test within 48 hours of arrival, life goes on as normal. If you are an unvaccinated passenger, you will need to quarantine for 7 days. So the negative COVID test plus quarantine for unvaccinated passengers, and that's children 11 and younger do not need proof of vaccination, but they do need the negative test. And passengers 2 years and under are not required to have a negative COVID test, but any children 2 years and up are required to have the negative test. The tests can be either the molecular or the antigen COVID tests. The at-home testing is not accepted here. It doesn't have your name, it doesn't have the date taken. They're not going to accept it. It needs to be from an actual lab with your name and date on the negative COVID test. The cruise lines are also subject to these new rules, and nearly a dozen cruise ships have already canceled their day in port in San Juan already. So the new rule change is that all guests and crew must be tested before arriving on the island. So the crew passengers and the crew for the cruise ship, they must submit a negative COVID test take no more than 48 hours before their day in port. In addition, all crew members and guests who have tested positive for COVID-19 or have been identified as just being in close contact with someone who's tested, regardless of their vaccination status, they must remain on the cruise ship and they won't be permitted to get off the cruise ship and disembark in San Juan. The new regulation is in addition to the vaccine requirement for all visitors 12 and over that are arriving by cruise ship. The only unvaccinated passengers that can disembark in Puerto Rico are kids age 11 and younger that have that negative COVID test. Again, children 2 and under do not need to provide a negative COVID test, nor obviously vaccination status because they're too young. Your proof of vaccination or negative COVID test is required for check-in to any short-term rental, hotel, Airbnb, Parador, etc. So you will need to present that upon check-in, either your proof of negative test or your vaccination status. If you have just arrived and you are unvaccinated, you will need to quarantine there at your own expense for 7 days. If you are traveling to the island for less than 7 days and you are unvaccinated, you will need to be in quarantine for the entire time. You will be allowed to leave if your trip was less than 7 days, but you will not be permitted to leave the hotel and go out to eat or go to the beach or anything. You need to quarantine, but they will not stop you from leaving the island. Large indoor events require proof of vaccine and a negative COVID test taken no more than 72 hours before the event. And through January 31st, children's ages 5 to 11 are allowed to enter large indoor events by providing that negative COVID test, either antigen or PCR, not the at-home tests. Those are not accepted. And results taken no more than 48 hours prior to the event. Starting February 1st, children 5 and over have the same requirements as adults. They will require proof of vaccination and negative test upon entry to any large outdoor events, sporting events, etc. Children ages 5 and under will not be allowed to attend those events at all. Sporting events, recreational activities are all permitted following these guidelines. Beaches, El Yunque Rainforest, concerts, events, guided tours, and museums are all still open. Ticketed events may require that proof of vaccination or negative COVID test to get in. Beaches and El Yunque Rainforest, hiking, outdoor events in small groups or just with your family unit are completely allowed. Anchoring off of beaches, keys, or inlets less than 100 feet from shore is still not allowed. You have to use a mooring ball or you can't anchor offshore and go to the beach. Masks are required in all closed spaces and outdoor activities of 50 attendees or more. Masks are still not required on the beaches. Many activities are just being canceled. The Sanse Festival in San Juan for January is canceled this year. New Year's Rockin' Eve has been moved to just a virtual show. There aren't going to be any attendees in the audience. And we're seeing restrictions on Three Kings Day parades. They probably will allow the horse ride. The Three Kings ride out on horses through the town, and it's a wonderful tradition. It's usually followed by the Three Kings presenting presents to the children of the town. I don't know how they're going to be doing that. If they will, it might be either heavily restricted or just restricted and limited to the horse ride only. And we're seeing that throughout January and into the coming months, that large events are being canceled, being moved to virtual, or being restricted in other ways. Some events that had previously been outside, they're looking at what other options they can do and still have the event either virtual or in kind of a spread out capacity or limiting capacity in general. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Jen There, Done That in Puerto Rico and restrictions in Puerto Rico.